Court right now that is titled Walgate v. Kasich. So for an organization that a lot of people paint is way off to the right and being shills for Republicans, I can guarantee you that the Democrats can't stand us and the Republicans hate us a little bit more because we won't get in line and do what they want us to do. And so that lawsuit was brought about based upon some constitutional, I'll use the term obligations. It's a lot more strict, obviously, than that. But we didn't feel the governor and his team and the administration was upholding the Ohio Constitution, and they cut some backroom deals and went around it in regards to gambling. And the 1973 Constitutional Amendment, as well as the 2009 Constitutional Amendment. So we filed a lawsuit. We were booted out of Common Pleas Court in Franklin County. We were booted out of the appellate court, and now we find ourselves waiting to hear if we will be granted standing at the Ohio Supreme Court. And our question for them, and I think it's a question that everyone in this room sits back and asks, you know, as taxpayers, as individuals, we have business owners listed on our lawsuit. If we don't have standing to hold the government accountable when the law is broken, then who does? Then who does? There's a lot of people that asked us, and I've taken part in debates and so many other things, and people say, well, if you don't like the governor, just get rid of them. And I said, well, you don't understand. If we get rid of the governor because we don't like them, what if the next person violates the Constitution? What good is it to have a Constitution? I think in a lot of ways we're looking at that from a federal perspective right now as well. And I know there's a lot of concern, and that's why each and every one of you are here, which leads us to the topic of why we were invited, and that is to discuss the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. In my hands, this is the law. This is what was passed, bound together. This is what was, safe to say, rammed down our throats without being read, without being fairly debated, without being discussed. We've seen so many things happen to it. We've seen the delays that have taken place. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, someone who does not agree with me in terms with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. And he said, the president is delaying this all the time. Shouldn't you be happy and celebrating? I said, well, the part that you don't understand is the president doesn't have the authority to delay this or do anything. You know, and we've worked on a project here at Roundtable called Article 1, and I'll make sure to leave materials for everyone that talks about the importance, you know, in this country, we've made the presidency, and I'm going to say this, we've made the presidency, whether we're talking about Ronald Reagan or Barack Obama, to be a rock star. Almost a king, an idol, something we look up to. And we've lost sight that where Article 1 puts the power, and we've lost sight of Congress and how important it is to have a constitutional Congress in place. And if we had a constitutional Congress in place, number one, we wouldn't have this atrocity of a law rammed down our throats. But number two, right now, if we had one in place, there would be accountability, and the president wouldn't be getting away with all of these delays, all of these executive orders, so many things that are happening. So that's why it's so important to have a constitutional Congress in place, and it makes these elections in 2014 very, very important. So as we read the health care law, I'll share one last story, and then I'll turn it over to our legislative director, Melanie Elsey. But as Melanie and myself and Dave Zanotti were traveling the country and speaking to groups on the health care law, you know, we had loosely bound, printed out copies of the bill, you know, that we're carrying around in boxes and losing pieces and parts, and they're all marked up, and we have the clean copy ordered. But Dave and I were having lunch one day, and he said, you know what? He said, we can't keep carrying these things around. We're losing papers, and it's all marked up. He said, we got to get some bound copies in here. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I'll take care of that. So I got online, and I went to the government printing office, and I ordered 4 bound copies. Now, it cost to order the bound copies, they were over $40 each to order them from the government printing office. Fine. But the interesting part is I ordered them, and 2 weeks later I got something in the mail. I got this green postcard that thanked me for my order. Now, the order was placed this past October of 2013. So we all know when the bill was passed, we all know when it was signed, we all know everything that's happened. So the order was placed in October of 2013. I get this postcard dated November 6th of 2013, thanking me for my order. and letting me know that it was out of stock and they weren't going to print it for another 60 to 90 days to mail it to me. So I immediately I thought, wow, how ironic. The bill that they rammed down our throats and didn't bother reading, they don't want anybody else to read anyway. But they did go ahead and bill my credit card. And then eventually they did send us the copies, and that is a clean copy. But we're doing our best to mark them up. We're doing our best to talk about what's actually in the law. We're doing our best to share with others so they can hear it, because if there's going to be something done about it, it's going to have to be done by all of us, all the people in this room, all our friends, all of our neighbors. The Obama campaign, to take a look at the last election, the amount of money they spent and the strategy they had was second to none. It really was. It's the best political strategy you've ever seen in our lifetimes, without a doubt. But they did it that way so that everyone, to reach you, so that you would talk to your neighbor. Because they knew person-to-person contact was still the best way to get a vote. And so they did all that so that people would talk to their neighbor and encourage their neighbor to vote for them. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to make sure that we're talking to our neighbors, make sure we're talking to our friends, make sure we're talking to the people that care so that we can provide them with truth. Melanie Ellzey, Roundtable National Legislative Director, is going to come and share now. Melanie, I consider her, she's going to yell at me for saying this when we leave, I consider her the foremost expert in the country when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. She's read it, I've read it one time, and I'll tell you what, I always read it at night because I knew I'd fall asleep quickly. So it took me many nights to get through it. Melanie has read it multiple times. She understands the law. We're going to take a look at some of the things inside the law she has on PowerPoint, because a week from today, there are some very important things taking place at the United States Supreme Court when you take a look at the Hobby Lobby case and what that means for religious liberty to all of us, especially as it pertains to this law. So help me welcome Melanie Ellzey, please.
I know if I said not all of you will be able to see me, you don't need to see me. If you can hear my voice, that would be what's more important. And if you can see the screen. How many of you are familiar with the Hobby Lobby case, or at least have heard that that case is pending? How many of you know where in Obamacare the impetus for that case comes from, what the language is in Obamacare that caused the lawsuit, that instigated the litigation? So we know something is happening, and I haven't turned the screen on yet. I have the little thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were motioning me to put something up there. Can you all hear me in the back? Is that better? Okay. Maybe I'll just use my teacher voice. That would be. Well, what I want to share with you is we're going to walk through the statute so that you can understand a little bit better, not just this situation, but really this litigation is indicative of so many pieces and parts within this massive piece of legislation. We're going to start with section 2713, maybe. I think the projector just went dormant because it's set for a while, so we're just going to go on the wake up.
There it goes.
I don't know if it would be better to turn off the light on this end of the room. There we go. Is that better? Can you all see that better? Not focused. It looks focused to me. This is language from the statute itself. This was and it was really interesting to me when I was reading through the legislation, and I did review H.R. 3200, which was its predecessor. And I need to interject here that there are a lot of emails that we have seen over the last couple of years about what's in Obamacare and all of the very scary stuff. Almost all of the emails that come across my desk that people have forwarded are not accurate. because they are based on the language in HR 3200, which was not the final version of the bill. This language in this section talks about coverage of preventive services.